Hi, this is Heidi Burgess. I want to talk about a question that we get from our students a lot, which is why we can't seem to fix anything anymore. They are quite depressed by the state of the world and the number of apparently intractable problems, and they can't understand why we no longer seem to be able to fix things the way we used to. The answer that Guy and I have is that almost all of the problems that they identify that need fixing are underlain by conflict problems, and we haven't learned how to deal successfully with intractable conflicts. Let me illustrate. Here's a graph and a chart from Gallup Poll that was taken in January 2017, and the results are also shown for the previous 6 months. It asked people what the most important problem facing the United States today is. The most common answer was the economy. Other common answers were dissatisfaction with government and poor leadership, race relations, health care, election and election reform, terrorism, and surprising to me, immigration of illegal aliens, which was down to 4. It was considerably higher a year ago, although racism and health care are considerably higher than a year ago. You can look at this chart more carefully yourself. A link to it is given in the transcript, and you can look at the trends over the last 6 months and look at the entire list of things that people cited. All of these problems are tied up with conflicts. Think about the economy. What's the fundamental problem with the economy? Well, we can't even agree on that. Some people say that there wasn't enough stimulus. Some people say that we had too much. Some people say that 1% is getting too much. Others think they're getting too little. Some people think we need to put more effort into keeping jobs in the country. Other people don't think that's very important. Why do people care? Well, because the economy means security, and security is what is a fundamental human need. Conflict theorists have argued persuasively, I think, that when people's fundamental needs, including security, are threatened, they will fight until they feel secure. When their jobs are threatened, when their life savings is threatened, when their ability to live in the style to which they are accustomed are threatened, they're going to fight, and they're going to continue to fight until they have obtained their fundamental human needs. Look at the other problems on this list. Dissatisfaction with government. Need I say more? Some of my colleagues thought if liberals won the election last November, our problems would be gone. Clearly they are not, and they probably wouldn't have been even if the election had gone the other way. The conflict between liberals and conservatives, Democrats and Republicans, is an identity conflict and a security conflict, and it's as intractable as ever. Race and race relations? That's another obvious one. There's conflicts over race and policing, race and immigration, race and jobs, education, housing, all intractable. Healthcare? There's been a conflict over Obamacare ever since it was just an idea that was developing. Now the Republicans are figuring out that replacing it isn't going to be as easy as they thought. They're bogged down in internal and external conflicts. Elections and election reform? Many think the last election was illegitimate. On both sides. I can keep going. Everything on this list is caused by and or is causing deep-rooted conflict. Most relate to security and identity and what John Burton calls fundamental human needs. And as I said before, when these needs are threatened, people don't stop fighting until those needs are met. So this gets you to what we call a positive feedback system. When human needs are denied, it leads to conflict. And that conflict leads to the further denial of human needs. And you get a vicious cycle that goes round and round and round. So why can't we solve these problems? I would argue that we can't agree on what the conflict is, what the problem is, whose fault it is, what we want to change, how we can change it or fix it, and who should change it or fix it. take climate change for example. We cannot agree on whether the problem is real or not, whether it's human caused or not, whose fault it is if it's human caused and what we should do to fix it, or who is responsible for fixing it. And we're spending so much time and money arguing about these things that we're doing far less than we need to do to address the problem. The same thing can be said for any of the other problems on this list. So I want to end with some questions for you. If you're new to these ideas, play with them. Ask yourself, what are the biggest problems facing the United States, or elsewhere if you're from a different country? What are the conflicts that underlie these problems? And what can we do to start resolving the conflicts more constructively? If your first answer is to point your finger at somebody else and say it's their fault, keep in mind that they are probably pointing their finger at you. So finger pointing just keeps us bogged down in that same old intractable conflict game. We need to be able to come up with new ideas so we're better able to deal with these conflicts if we're going to be able to solve any of these other problems. If this is familiar to you, we'd like you to add your thoughts on the discussion board. How can we get the general public and our politicians beyond the finger pointing, us versus them mode that's kept us bogged down for so long? How can we start addressing these conflicts more constructively? And what can people in our field do to make that happen? Obviously, we haven't done enough because these conflicts just aren't going away. So, please join the discussion board and help us to figure this out. Thanks.